Alrighty, folks, it is Zach here. Got our pull day, first one of the macro cycle here, and got the exercises down on the bottom left there if you want to pause it and check them out. But essentially, we are starting off the same that we did the last macro cycle because I'm still prioritizing growing my biceps. They're one of the other muscle groups aside from shoulders that I'm really prioritizing right now. So that's why you'll see bicep exercises at the beginning of my workouts so that I can do the exercises whenever I'm fresh. So I can drive as much stimulus as possible into the biceps. So doing a little warm-up set here at 10 pounds. I still do, even though I'm not including it in the videos, I'm still doing a general warm-up. I call them self-hugging. That's just where you have your arms like straight out to your sides and you open up, kind of like you were going to hug someone, except you bring your arms as far back as you can to stretch a little bit. And then I just ballistically move through that motion, that horizontal plane, kind of like, wrapping the arms around myself. I usually do 10 times slow, 10 times fast, 5 times slow. And the slow ones, I get a nice, good stretch on the back and the chest. And then for verticals, kind of like the vertical plane warm up, I'll reach my hands straight up in the air and then go down, bend at the knees and hips, put my hands behind me, and then basically same thing, 10 fast, 5 slow. And then on leg day, I do leg swings, like 15 leg swings per leg, just to move things around, get them feeling warmed up, get my heart rate up a little bit. So I'm still doing that general warm up, but I make it quick. It's no more than 5 minutes, just quickly, get the heart rate up, actually warm the body up through doing that activity. And then I get into my warm-up sets. And for this one, like I said, 10 pounds, and then we move into what you're seeing right now, which is my first working set. And I'm doing these at 15 pounds per dumbbell, so don't need a ton of weight. I'm already, like I said, or I guess I didn't mention that this workout was about 4 hours ago. So definitely when I'm flexing my biceps right now, I can feel that perturbation. So that incline dumbbell curl is the bomb diggity right now. Eventually I might try dropping it down to even flatter of a bench to get even more of a stretch. But as of right now, these feel good. Stimulus to fatigue ratio is fantastic on them. Doesn't really wipe me out. It makes pulling and rowing for the rest of the pull day a little bit more difficult, but because the back has so much more power than just the biceps, it doesn't end up being a limiting factor because my biceps are still getting worked by the pulling movements, but they're not the limiter because they're a smaller muscle. So my body's going to use something bigger like my lats and then my rhomboids and all the other, erector spinae muscles and all the other muscles in the back will kind of take over, which is the point because this exercise is for the biceps and those exercises are for the back. And I try to, it's kind of in the same vein of what I was talking about yesterday with, choosing exercises, choosing what volume to start at, especially. So, for example, kind of harkening back to that discussion, for these incline curls, when I finished my last macro cycle, I was doing 4 sets, and 4 sets was enough to get a super crazy pump, feel a lot of tension, good burn, and I would be sore. Usually my biceps take only 1 day to get sore. And so as long as they're getting sore, that should be a good volume. I can recover on time to hit biceps again on my next pull day, essentially with 3 days in between. So, and that's that. The whole idea with that is that muscle protein synthesis kind of peaks out at day 2 and then trails off at day 3. So really by day 3, the end of day 3, you should be hitting that muscle group again to reinitiate muscle protein synthesis and therefore reinitiate hypertrophy. So that is the logic on that one. And then let's see here. After that, after these curls, I decided to put pull-ups. Still using that green 35-pound resistance band that you see there, and Versa grips, because again, I just did all those curls. I don't want my biceps and my forearms to be the limiting factor. I want my back to be the limiting factor here. So getting set up for that. Doing right here, I like to do like quarter pulls from a dead hang. Really stretch everything out. Start the pulling, and I'm kind of, when I'm doing this, I'm cueing myself, thinking about pulling from the elbows. Because if you think about pulling with your hands, a lot of times you can accidentally recruit way too much biceps and forearms into the movement when it's supposed to be working your back. So, it's kind of something to always keep in mind whenever you're planning out your program, or if you're looking at a program that someone made for you. There's a lot of things to consider there, and honestly, unless you have someone to teach you, or you go to school and learn, like a lot of the stuff that I've learned about this has been from, of course, YouTube. I watch tons of YouTube videos about primarily new scientific literature and the latest and greatest in like exercise science, hypertrophy science, stuff like that. But also another major factor there, I mean, you can definitely should look into that stuff, because people might poo-poo on science, but if you can demonstrate something with a randomized control trial, that's significant. That's typically considered a higher level of evidentiary backing than like a personal anecdote or something like that. So it's worth looking into the stuff that the experts are saying, but at the same time, I mean, you have to go by experience as well. You have to perform the exercises, try out different rep ranges, see what feels right for you. So something to keep in mind there. So for altering either exercises, rep range, volume, you're going to look for certain markers. So one of the things that I was talking about in the push day yesterday was how you would progress your volume through a training block, what I'm calling macrocycles. It's that 5-week accumulation, 1-week deload. I'm doing 6-week macrocycles. And one of the things that I will do, and I'll probably make a video either tonight or tomorrow on this, because I need to make my next microcycle. So I need to write out what I'm going to do for my next, legs, push, pull, which will be day after tomorrow, which is the rest day. So thinking about my leg day that's coming up, I'm going to have to put more volume into my quads, because they got a little bit sore, but not nearly, like my hamstrings are fried. They're still, like, flexing them right now, sitting at my desk. They are sore. My hamstrings got beat up from those straight leg deadlifts, especially because I was kind of plateauing on those. I've been at 95 pounds on straight leg deadlifts for like months. And it's just because they, like I mentioned, man, that raw stimulus magnitude, those things jack me up. My quads are just fried. So I'm looking into trying to push the envelope on that, but it ends up being my only glute ham focused exercise, which is fine with me. The fewer exercises that I can get a big stimulus from, the better, because I enjoy training, but I don't want to have to spend hours doing it. If I can spend 1 hour out there getting after it, training hard, and get really great results, then I'd much rather do that than have to take 2.5 hours to try to do the same thing, but make it super duper complicated. So that's why you'll see most of my workouts are like 4 exercises, 3 exercises, and it's just big compound movements, and then some, like the curls, for example, trying to emphasize bicep growth. That's where you throw in those isolation movements. So that's the logic on that. So pull-ups, looks like this is the last set here. Ended up getting, on my incline curls, I got 13 reps 11 reps for the second set. The third set, I actually had something I had to run inside and go do in between the sets, so it ended up being almost like a 4-minute rest time between sets. So I actually got 11 reps again. So another thing to think about there when you're, if something happens and you need to take a break mid-set, maybe you got to go to the bathroom, don't typically set to set, I'll lose like 2 reps. Like if I'm benching, let's say my rep range is 10 to 20, I'm expecting based on the load to get like 16 reps. The next set I would expect to get maybe 14 or 13. Usually I drop a couple reps, trying to keep the same RIR, because I probably could get the same amount of reps, but then I'm getting closer to something like 0 reps in reserve, which I don't want to do because I want to keep every set at 3 RIR. And so to do that, I just lose a couple reps set to set. So kind of something you'll see there. But the reason I mention this is that pull-up example, if you do end up having to take a longer break, or something happens, or you're need to use the restroom or something, you can kind of expect, if you have a longer rest time, to be able to almost match or get close to matching the reps you did on the previous set. So next up here, got the pull-ups done, ended up doing 12, 10, and 8 for those 3 sets. And then we're moving on to these deficit barbell rows. So got that 45 plate down there that I'm standing on, and it's the same idea as the straight leg deadlifts, where because it's a bent movement, I'm increasing the range of motion by, whatever that plate height is, like 2 inches. And so it makes it to where I get just a little bit more stretch. And, that did the trick on these barbell rows, because my back was lit up after this. My erector spinae were like, I was like, I could like turn and see them poking out of my shirt, man. It was crazy. Super crazy back pump, which is nice when you're doing back. Not so nice when I've had times where I'll be doing like barbell curls and my back starts getting pumped. I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not what I wanted. But the exercise overall felt really, really good. Nice deep stretch. You'll see I'm hinging at the hips. I'm letting my spine kind of extend a little bit, or rather, extension, right? It's getting longer. Yeah. Flexion is whenever I go up, that's flexion, and then extension. So it's not major. I'm not like creating crazy thoracic lumbar curvature, but I'm definitely letting those erector spinae muscles kind of like stretch out at the bottom. You'll see I try to slow it down, and I'm doing my best. Thankfully, I chose a rep range here that allows me to keep the weight pretty low, 10 to 20, and I ended up doing, 18 and 16 reps on these 2 sets here. That's a lot on a barbell row. If I was doing something heavy, 16 reps would be, you'd be trying not to pass out after a super hard set close to failure of rows like that. But whenever the load's light like this, I don't have to recruit as much hamstring, which is what I'm trying to avoid. I was kind of like breathing out and then bracing at the bottom so that I could really focus on flexing my back to start the movement going up, and then I let the bar come up at the same time, pulling through the elbows, trying to bring the elbows to the ceiling, and that way it's engaging all of the back muscles rather than, smoking my forearms or my biceps. So even though this is still technically counting towards bicep hypertrophy, it's just not, directed at the biceps, we'll say. So it's pretty neat rolling out a new exercise and having it feel, I wrote down on my log here, thoracic city, spinal erectors. Yeah, so it was pretty pumped there at the end of that. But so looking at programming and stuff, I'll make a video on how I make my next workout. But basically what I've done here is, because my quads are not super sore, they're not worn out. I could train quads again right now, which if I had like a leg extension machine, that would be awesome, because then I would just train quads right now, and then I've got tomorrow as a rest day, so I probably wouldn't be sore by leg day, but don't want to overcomplicate things, and I don't have the machinery to do it. But what I am going to do is this next microcycle, so the next leg day, we're still at 3 RIR, and we will be all the way through the next 3 microcycles, so the next 3 groups of leg push-pull. We'll be doing 3 reps in reserve. And because I know that, I can go ahead and increase the volume because I wasn't sore. So I'll be doing 3 sets on back squat and 3 sets on Nordic curls. So it's going to be a sweaty one for the next leg day. I'll definitely let you guys know how I'm feeling after it when I publish that video. So hope you all have a good one.